Welcome to the LB's The Lover of Books author chat. I'm going to go ahead and introduce this fantastic, iconic debut YA novelist. Zoulfa Katouh is the only person in her family who can't roll her tongue. I love this intro, by the way. This is from her.
Oh my God, they make fun of me. They make fun of me. It's so bad.
But you know what? That's okay because she writes characters who can do so. She holds a bachelor's degree in pharmacy and is currently pursuing her master's degree in drug sciences. She is trilingual in English, Arabic, and German. Zoulfa currently resides in Switzerland, where she finds inspiration in the studio, pronounce the word, Ghibli? I don't know how to
Ghibli.
Ghibli.
Yeah.
Picturesque scenery. Ever since her mama gave her a copy of Anne of Green Gables, one of my all-time favorites, when she was 8 years old, she discovered the beauty of books. Soon enough, she was sneaking books under her school desk to read while teachers went on about math and physics. Haven't we all done that?
Oh my God, yeah.
Her imagination grew, and one day she had the courage to put pen down to stories that roam her mind, and she never stopped. One of her many dreams is to get Kim Namjoon to read one of her books. Her speculative contemporary YA debut, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, is published by Little Brown Books for young readers and Bloomsbury, making her the first Syrian YA author to be published in the US and the UK. Let's welcome Zoulfa. Thank you so much for being here. Now,
thank you for having me.
I'm going to go ahead and just give just a quick little blip about this book. We're here to talk about the book of the month YA novel, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. It's a love letter to Syria and its people, a speculative novel set amid the Syrian revolution, burning with the fires of hope, love, and possibility. It's been described as perfect for fans of The Book Thief and Salt to the Sea. And I want to say tomorrow is Syria National Day. Is that correct? On April 17th.
So, yeah.
So we intentionally planned this as sort of a celebration. And also, I know that you are observing Ramadan. So I want to say thank you because this is very late. It's 9 o'clock in Switzerland, everybody. So she's really doing us a huge favor, staying up and fasting and still joining us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing today? Everything good so far?
Yeah, everything is good. Thank you for having me. It's been, yeah, it feels like a daydream since September 13th. That's when the book came out. So it's like, yeah, wow.
It's been kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
So, you know, this began though, when did this idea, thought process begin in your head, and how long did it take you to get it to pen to paper?
Well, it's been a very long journey. It started in 2017. I was living in the UAE before that for like 15 years, and I split my time between the UAE and Switzerland. But once I permanently moved to Switzerland in September of 2017, I started taking German classes here for university and stuff. And people were asking me like, oh, you have Syrian roots. So like, what's happening in Syria? Because like Europe has been really impacted by a lot of refugees that have been coming in. And so I was like, they're like, are you a refugee? And I'm like, no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, it just showed that there's a very lack of education with people in Europe about what's going on. And so I was like, you know, the news has been reporting on this. It's been like, back then it was like more than 9 years, something like that. And so you'd think that people would know because like every day it's on the news, it's always on social media, but people don't really know because I don't think a lot of people do watch the news. I mean, I myself, sometimes like it's too much. Sometimes it's just too much to like watch something so horrific all the time. And most of us get our news from social media, from, you know, where we are. But I don't know, we don't even have a TV in my home. So like, we don't even watch like CNN or those stuff. So I was like, you know what? I had read Then Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys, and she had talked about something very major that happened in World War II, which was the William Gustave ship that sank. And it was a terrible tragedy, but it's not something that I learned in school. And so that for me opened a door to find out more about what happened in World War II. And I was like, I want to do something like that. I want to do what Ruta did and do it for the Syrian people, because English is my first language. It is not a first language for a lot of Syrians. And I would be able to tell what is happening, the facts, whatever the media has been reporting on, and make it into a story, because stories talk about the emotional and just like the human side of what is going on. That's what stories are for. They make you connect to people. And so that's what I did. I started writing it in NaNoWriMo in November of 2017. And I wrote it for what I mean, it took me 1 year to write it until August of 2018. And then I started editing, looking for agents, yada, yada, yada. All of that was like, it was a lot. It took a lot from me. And I signed with my agent in August of 2019. And then it's still editing. So yeah, but like the thought for that, like from thought to pen on paper was a very short period of time, because like I had moved here, I didn't know anyone. And so I wanted to do something. Like if there was a very big emptiness in my life that I didn't have. And so I could fill it up with reading and writing. And it was just, I mean, I honestly can't even remember like the point where I'm like, I'm going to write this. Like it just happened. You know what I mean? Maybe it's been too long. I mean, it was 2017. That was like, I don't know, 50 years ago. So like, I feel like I don't even remember how it started, but yeah, it was like that.
Do you feel like it did fill the emptiness? Because you mentioned that there was that hole. Did it serve that purpose for you?
It really did. I mean, for me, because it was a cultural shock to come from Dubai to here. I mean, Swiss people and people in Dubai are very vastly different. And I came from like a very big circle of friends group. And I was like going out every day. From that to just like going to German school, not knowing if I was going to be accepted into university. It was like writing did fill up a very big lonely part in my soul. And I could escape into worlds that I created. And it made my stories feel very much real to me. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, you're talking about having this need to write and this imagination and having this world that you're developing, but yet you're a pharmacist, which is the other side of the brain. So it sounds like you're a pretty equally left brain, right brain person. Do you find fulfillment, I guess, and both sides,
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to study English literature, but my mom was like, no. And so
good old mom.
Like, yeah, my mom was like, she's a very rational human being. And so she was like, you don't know what's going to happen if you do study English literature. I mean, sadly, very sadly, English literature jobs are not as prevalent as, for example, in STEM, and it shouldn't be. It really should not be like this. And so she was like worried for my future. She was like, you will always be able to study English literature, but you won't get a chance to study pharmacy or medicine or whatever. And you're good. Like I was good at sciences. I was really good. I loved it. It was very interesting to me. And so she was like, you'll have the sciences to fall back on if, your dream of being, and I didn't even think, because I thought to be an author, you had to study English literature. And I thought that for a very, very long time until I started writing Lemon Trees. And so that's why I was like, oh, if I can't do English literature, that means I can't be an author. But that was not true at all. Anyone can be an author. Just like English literature teaches you so much about life. Like I love it. I still do love it. And so, yeah, that's why I did pharmacy. And I also really do like it. I mean, it's just fascinating how much impact you can have on people's lives. Like with my research right now, I know that hopefully it will impact children's lives towards the better when we find them a cure for this horrific cancer. So it's really fulfilling on both ends. Like I'm able to write stories that hopefully people are seen in, and also help cure children hopefully in the future. So yeah, it's fulfilling on both ends, but so tiring. Like I don't recommend it to anyone, because like I'm sometimes at my wit's end with energy, like no energy at all. Yeah.
Well, I will say that when you talk about each of them, I can just see the joy like bubbling out of you. And for you to have found not just one love, but two loves is so just amazing, because some people search their entire life for just one. So very blessed. And we're so lucky that you have found both, because both of those jobs have impacted Lemon. So if we were a fly on the wall with you writing this novel, what does it look like? I mean, are you, on the computer? Are you a mapper? Do you have, scenes on the wall, a pinboard? What does it look like?
If you were a fly on the wall, like in front of me, you would be able to tell what kind of scenes I'm writing based on my facial expressions, because I am not a plotter, I'm a pantser. So like, I'm like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? Like, for example, we all read the book here, right? I can talk about.
Yeah. So are you,
like,
if you're about to give a spoiler,
okay.
People, if you haven't, hop off, because everybody has read. Go for it.
Okay, good. So like the scene where she blackmails him for a spot on the boat, that was not planned. Like I didn't know where it was going. So when it happened, I was like, oh my God, like I was just like shaking. I was like, I felt like I was in the scene itself, which was like so cool. But like at the same time, I was like, I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe like we're actually gonna blackmail him with his daughter. Like, oh my God, what are readers, what are people gonna think? Like, because but I was very happy that I thought of it because, you know, it was a very intense scene that shows how far you can go as a human being when your safety and the safety of the people that you love is being compromised. And so like scenes like that, I didn't plan. And so if you were flying the wall, you would see me just like being like just gasping. And I'm like, when I write the love scenes, I'm like, oh, it's so cute. Like, you know, it's just, it alternates. But yes, I'm on my laptop. I had a very bad laptop that I was writing on. It took forever to turn on and then forever to shut down, and then it froze, and it was so bad. But like I felt like a person possessed writing this book story, that I didn't even care that it was so slow. So when I finished writing the book, I got thankfully a new MacBook, and I had that like old laptop for like 10 years, so like it was dead, like it was on its last legs. It was like this HP, it made like an airplane sound when it turned on, like it was so bad. And so when I realized like, oh my God, laptops shouldn't do this. They don't have to, I don't have to suffer. So it just showed like how possessed I am, that I didn't care that it was, my laptop was going through it, that I just wanted to get this book finished. Hopefully one person would read it. If more than one person read it, that would be amazing. And that's what happened. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you put 110% of yourself into the novel, into all your work. And no wonder why you're so exhausted, because you just give so much. How
Yeah.
much of yourself did you put into Salama? Because, you know, we know she's a pharmacist. We, you know, like where do you draw the line, and where does it blur a little bit?
I think it blurs with my likes. I don't put a lot of my own personality in my characters, because then it feels like self-insert. And for me, that kind of sometimes feels weird, like writing about myself. Like I would make a mistake and write Zoulfa instead of Salama. That would not work for me. Like, so I give them my likes and dislikes. So, but not all of them. So like with Salama, what we have in common is literally pharmacy, even though she's way more experienced than I am, and Studio Ghibli. And that's it. Like her personality is very different than mine. She was an extrovert who became an introvert because of like what happened. And I'm nothing like that. So I usually like to give pieces of myself to my characters. Like a character that I'm writing right now, I gave her some of my experiences in high school, just like that anxiety that we all had in high school of like, where are we gonna go? Like, what's gonna happen to us? And like, you know, all those small stuff. So like it's dispersed hopefully fairly well between all characters. But I just don't like, I mean, sometimes obviously you will bleed into your own characters without you knowing it. But I tried to make them as individualistic as possible, because I want them to be unique and not like copies of each other. And that was something that I was worried about, is that with my other books, am I writing Salama point two? Thankfully not. Thank God, like every character has her own voice. That has been like a huge weight off my shoulders. So I'm really, really happy about that. But yeah, they're nothing like me.
Have you been surprised to find something in the book that you didn't even realize that you put of yourself, and just afterwards it came to be like I was talking earlier to you. First of all, I love her makeup and the promotion that I put out there for this author chat. Like I just think her makeup is absolutely gorgeous. And she was telling me a story about the blue eyeshadow. So wait, there was a blue eyeshadow in this book. So I'm wondering if like that comes out intentionally, or if it's just part of you know?
Yeah, that one was like, that was blue eyeliner propaganda for me. I was like, I need more people to discover the magic of blue eyeliner, especially POC girls, because it looks so beautiful on us. And so I was like, I need to talk about that. So yeah, that one came out because like I had a friend from university, and she messaged me. She was reading the book. She was like, "Oh my God, you always used to put blue eyeliner in university. Like that's so you." I'm like, "That's the only thing that's me. Like I am not my main character." But like, yeah, pieces of like that just like bleed in. But it's I think a lot of, even with Studio Ghibli, their favorite movies from Studio Ghibli are not my favorite movies. Like mine is Spirited Away. It was my first Studio Ghibli movie I ever watched. I love it so much. And for them, it's like, for example, Princess Mononoke or Castle in the Sky, because like it brought them together. But other than that, no, yeah. I think it was just the blue eyeliner. And it's like, people have to catch it because, like, as I said, it would bleed, but I wouldn't even consciously know it unless someone told me that, oh, look what you did. This is a part of you in the book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love those little Easter eggs you don't even know you're laying. So now what about the affinity to flowers? Because it seems to be a very big part of the book with healing powers. Is this something you studied before, or is this something you researched for the book? How did that come in?
That actually was one of the last things I did in a rewrite. Actually, it was my last rewrite. So I was trying to find something for Salama to hang on to when her anxiety becomes too much, something that grounds her. And I started thinking about how could I relate that to her personal life or what she studied, like pharmacy. And so when I was in university, we had a course called pharmacognosy, which talked about different kinds of plants and flowers that have healing abilities in them. And when I remember that, I was like, oh, she definitely would have taken that as a course in university, or from herself, she would be someone interested in knowing, different kinds of flowers that she could, use for creams or for healing medicines, blah, blah. And so I had to research a lot about that, the flowers that I could use for each, but it was just this light bulb that, flickered into existence in my head. And I was like, oh, I could relate these two things. But it was like one of the last things that I've put in the book, because I just wanted to make her character a bit more rounded as a person who's like more in tune with what she studies and how it affects every aspect of her life.
So when that happens and you have to carefully go back through the novel and weave that in, how difficult is that when something comes in so late?
I mean, for me, because at that point I had memorized the book, but like back to cover, like back to front, like I knew it. And so I knew what scenes it wasn't very difficult for me to like put it between the scenes, because I knew what scenes like she needed it. And then I would go and see like how far spaced between each scene did she, say the flowers. And so but at that time, I knew the book really well, that it wasn't that difficult for me to go back and just like try to put them in. The difficult part is like trying to keep it under a certain amount of words, a word count, because like I can't exceed more than 100,000 words. I can't exceed more than 95, and Lemon Trees at the end was 98,000 words. So I was cutting it, like it was, yeah, they really wanted it to be 90,000 words, but like I couldn't cut more, because then it was going to be on character development and scenes and blah, blah, blah. So we kept it at 98, but that was the tricky part, like trying
to. Is that a YA rule? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, if it's
not to publishers rule, but in general, if it's going to be YA.
Yeah, general rule, yes. YA contemporary usually is kind of limited, but because mine has a speculative element, I have a kind of like a wriggle room. But when it's like YA contemporary, I could be wrong, but like I think it's like maximum 88, 89,000 words. But with fantasy, obviously it's more.
Yeah. Well, I'm impressed. You got them to push to your agenda. So yay, we're glad for the more word count. Also, with your push for blue eyeliner, I would like to make a push when this comes out in paperback. My suggestion would be to have the drawings of the flowers at each chapter front. Like, I think that would be so cool to add in some, as a graphic, because it's such an important, vital part of the book. I just think that would be a cool touch for the storyline.
Oh my God, that is so good. I'm gonna run that by my publisher, and hopefully they say yes, because that's really good. Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Now, she practices more than just pharmacology, right? I mean, that's she's just done 1 year of school, but she has, she's really stepping in as a surgeon in a lot of ways. Is that something that you've been trained in, that you had to do a round of, or is that something you really had to deep dive into research? Because I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for a girl of that age to be able to handle. So how did you handle it in the book?
It's not something that we've been trained on. Like if, for example, this is something that happens. I mean, I don't know how it is in pharmacy in here in Switzerland or in the US, but like in Dubai, for example, if a diabetic patient comes in and they're like, can you give me my insulin shot? Legally, I can't do that to them because I've not been trained into giving insulin shot, but I can watch them give themselves the insulin shot.
Right.
So I am not trained into, and as a rule, pharmacists are not trained into giving shots unless, of course, they took a special course. And that is something, for example, the clinic or the pharmacy that they're in gives flu shots and whatever. But like as a general rule, pharmacists don't do that. They just give medications and adjust the medication in hospitals and stuff like that. But so I had to dive in deep into research on how to get a pharmacist to do a surgeon's job. And that is something that has happened in Syria. I mean, I talk about how the custodial staff had been promoted to nurses and healthcare workers, because there are no healthcare workers. This is a real thing. This has happened. And so pharmacists have become surgeons, and surgeons have become more surgeons. So it's like it's people learning while working. Like this is taught by doing. It's not something that she would have learned at university at all. And yeah, so that was something I had to, yeah. So yeah, it's something like I mean in a way it sadly it does make sense. You know, if you're only in your theory, like this is something I'm seeing right now. I've studied theory my whole life, and now I'm at a lab working with cells and research and all that. And everything that I studied was, I mean, it helps, but like I needed that, you know, physical research to be able to handle the cells. Like learning about an experiment is so much different than obviously doing it. And so for her, she has learned so much by doing. And a lot of people would learn by that. They're putting under a circumstance where they have to learn, like there's no other choice for them. So yes, even people who didn't study medicine would become also surgeons, sadly, like just a makeshift surgeon, just try not to let this person die. Yeah.
When you talk about the staff, the cleaning staff becoming, you know, nurses or assistants or in the step up all along the way, did you have a chance to talk to people one-on-one, to interview, or how did you, even because you said, you know, you weren't a Syrian refugee, so how did you go about doing the research on all of, I mean, this is a lot of information. So how did you do that?
I mean, for me, the book, what I've written in the book is very, how can I say it? It's like mainstream news. Like this is something all Syrians know and has been reported for a very long time on the news itself. So the news has reported on more than what I've written. There's way more information. Like if I wrote 1%, there's 99% more that's what's been researched and talked about. And so unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to interview anyone. I'm so far away in Switzerland and in like close to the Arab world. And so what I did was research a lot about people, what they went through and what the media has reported. Like if the media was like saying custodial staff person's name has been promoted into a nurse, and he said he's talking about his own experience. So I take that, I was like, oh, a person has become a nurse. And I take that and I put it in the book and make a whole story for this person. It's fictional because obviously this person does not exist, but what happened did exist. This is happening. So yeah.
Well, I want to go in because a lot of this book is about mental illness, really. I mean, like it's that trauma, that post-traumatic stress disorder. Did you have to do research into that? Because it was, you know, such a big part of the book and covered not only Salama, but Kenan's younger brother, and probably so many Syrians having to deal with this, with war right on top of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a heavy question. So in my courses, we did study about mental health illnesses and medications that a person can take when they have these illnesses. And I myself interned at a mental health hospital in Dubai, and it was very eye-opening to see what people have gone through. And obviously it was people not who have been in war, but just like daily struggles with depression or bipolar disorder. And it just, it was emotional. It was really taxing to see this silent pain that people are going through. And so I had that experience of seeing how people respond to their own mental illness and how they want to be better. And when I wanted to write it for Salama, I wanted to write about how fear becomes so physical, because fear for us is very abstract, like you don't really see it, you just feel it. And so I wanted to make it something tangible. And writing about her PTSD, it did take a lot of research to read about what happens to people like that and the defense mechanisms that they come up with. But it was a lot, I was relying a lot on what I studied at university in order to be able to write the groundwork of it, and then try to inject some the human experience of it, because like obviously what you go through is science, but you can't sometimes explain it in science. It's just feelings that you go through. And so it was very important for me to write that in a way that feels hopefully real. I mean, I've had a lot of amazing responses for people who they don't go through what Salama went through, but they felt like they did go through something kind of similar. And they're like, I felt so seen. Like, yes, I didn't go through war, but I went through something else. And this made me feel seen, which was just amazing because I was really nervous about that. I just wanted to make people feel seen. And it was great to be able to do that.
What a great response. And I did see it as a defense mechanism, like Quaff, for instance. At first I thought it was more her conscience and trying to do the right thing. And it wasn't until later when you just described it's really that fear manifested into this person, right? And so it kind of turns, and I think that may be why they say The Book Thief is a good connector book, because that book is seen from Death's perspective, which is a little bit of a twist because that's the narrator instead of her, a voice from her head. But I thought those were two great books to connect if one does like the other. And the same for Salt to the Sea. I thought, again, hearing more about history. So I thought those were on the money. How did Quaff come to be, though? Like, how did you decide? Because he's such an interesting character, right? How did he materialize this character?
He was actually the first character that I thought of after Salama, because obviously she's the main character. And I was like, what if fear was a real person? Because like in Islam, we believe that everything is alive. From the trees to the stones, the skies, everything is alive. And so I was wondering, what if feelings are alive as well, because these are things that have existed since the dawn of time. So love, fear, hate, people have believed in them. They feel them like all the time. So I was like, what if that is also real? And so I wanted to drag him out and make him into a real person. I wanted it to be like kind of like an open-ended, like, do readers think did she break the fourth wall? Like, can she see something that is inhuman, supernatural, something real, or is it really her PTSD that just manifested and everyth's just in her head? So it was really fun writing him because I felt like I could do so much with who he is. I mean, he changed so much across like so many versions. One version I was like, when I had written it, he was showing her how Syria was throughout the ages, like from the dawn of time, like trying to connect her with her past, with her ancestry and all that. And there were very emotional story, like scenes to write, because like I was also experiencing Syria through Salama's eyes, seeing Syria through history. But that had to be cut because there was not enough word count. Again, I swear it's like every author's worst enemy is the word count. Like I can't, but I digress. It's fine.
Novella. So, yeah, we just need a novella. Go ahead, give it to us.
That could work. That could work. And so, then he became this character who's urging her to leave.
At times I hated him, right? And then at other times I'm thinking he's actually letting her remember and be close to her family. Like he's giving her that insight that a lot of times people say after a certain amount of time, you forget, like the smells, the looks, and instead he brings her right back. And so although that's painful, it's also a blessing, double-edged there. So
I agree. Yeah, he's a nice sleep paralysis demon. He's a nice.
Yes. And the thing that I loved when you described the nightmares is, again, you go back to these flowers, the belladonna, right? It's it's that you just never quite know, pretty or death, right? So it's I did enjoy that character. I thought he was well developed, and I was so glad that you included him. But shocker, again, if you have not read, get off. The even bigger shocker, more than was Layla, right? I'm sure everybody, I think because you had Quaff on here, you got me, like, because I knew she was seeing Quaff, but I'm like, like it just really, it threw me. And anybody else hands that, I see some nodding.
Sorry, Allie.
Yes, I see. Yeah, other people. So Ali had me sobbing. Like, so tell us, like, was that all along, or was that when we're watching you, like moment for you as well? I guess.
It was the first few versions, she was alive. Actually, you know what? The first few versions were way more traumatic than what you guys have read, because she was alive and everybody knew, like, you know, that she's not going to make it. Sadly, like, that's just the reality of it. Like, somewhere deep in your heart, in the back of your mind, you're like, she's not going to make it. Like, you want her to make it, but she's not going to make it. So I was like, so she does die in the first few versions, giving birth, which was very, very traumatic to write. Like, I cried a lot. And then my agent emailed me like at 12 a.m. and she was like, you know, I got an idea. And she's like, I don't know if it's going to work. She's like, already Leila doesn't have a lot of scenes with anyone. Like, she had only one scene with Kenan and that's it. And all the time she was at home. She's like, what if we make Leila a hallucination? It was my agent's idea. And I was like, whoa, because like I was kind of attached to her being alive. But then I was like, so she's like, you know, it just rounds up Salama's PTSD even more. Like it goes deeper than just Khawf. And so I was like, you know what? Because like I didn't have to change a lot of things at all. I just had to like change one scene with Kenan, that's it. And then just sprinkle some Easter eggs here and there of how, like, she, like, even in the earlier versions, she does not answer the phone at all. Because I was like, it makes sense for her not to answer the phone, because like, would you answer the phone? I wouldn't. Like, I don't know who this number is. And I'm like in the middle of a city that's being bombed. Like, no way in hell am I answering any phone. That's not happening. And so she didn't even answer the phone then. And so, yeah, that's when I was like, yeah, I think that works. And so I wrote it. That was like one of the last rewrites, actually. Yeah.
Kudos to the agent. Like, I was seeing dead people. Like, I was going back to Sixth Sense, and it was just that moment of, oh my gosh. But it didn't seem just thrown in there. It seemed like it solidified how severe her PTSD was. Like, it was beautiful in a haunting way, I will say, but phenomenal. Like that, like, just so good. What did you learn about yourself in writing all these characters? Because was like you're putting yourself so much into it. Did you pull at the end of it, besides being exhausted, did you pull anything out of it personally that you learned more about yourself, or even about Syria that you did not know going into this?
I learned how much I always knew how much I lost of not being able to go there and not living, having never lived there in my life. You know, I didn't realize how much I lost until I wrote this book. Like what I was talking about, when I was writing about how Salama has memories with her family and memories of Syria and all that, and how Kenan never wanted to leave. For me, I've had people say that I don't really sometimes understand Kenan's patriotism because I don't feel patriotic. And I'm like, I sometimes don't feel that too. Sometimes I don't feel that because like I've lived in so many different places. I don't know a place that says home to me. And so that was really sad. And so when I was writing it, I was like, oh my God, like this is what I lost. I lost a home. And so writing that made me like really emotional, that I mean, for me, home is Dubai, home is also Switzerland, home is Canada. But like, I haven't lived in a long, you know, like my whole life in one place to be like, I know these streets as my own. These are like my streets. Like I've lived here. I've seen every single brick. So this is not something that I have, or like my ancestors have been here for so many years. They've been in Syria. So like, and I've left that place. So it's realizing how much I've lost, sadly. Yeah.
Well, when you talked about the word count and how much you did cut, the one thing you brought up was getting to see Syria and ancestors. And so that makes sense now, because that's why it was so hard to see that go, because that was such a personal touch for you. That wasn't, you know, like it was, I really think you need to write that novella now, because it sounds so personal. And I think it would give people not from Syria a good inside view to that love, to that patriotism that you're talking about. And that it's, you know, they describe this book as a love letter, but I think that this might be, you know, almost you know, an intimate diary of sort of effect. So I hope that you do go there at some point, and we get to read that, because it sounds absolutely beautiful. All right. Now I want to talk about the symbolism of the lemon tree. And can you tell us about, because it's such a big part of, I mean, obviously it's the title of the book. It's throughout. I mean, Kenan smells of it. I mean, it permeates. So give us some insight there.
I wanted it to be something constant in the book. Like when I was thinking about the title, I was trying to think of something hopeful. And at the same time, I wanted something that isn't like glaringly obvious, but kind of like in the background that is always there, like with the way, for example, how Kenan smells, or when he points to like this lemon tree that's beside their house, or the lemons that they use on the road. They're like in the background, like just providing hope in very quiet ways. And so they're at the beginning of the book, I have the poem from Nizam Qabbani, "Every lemon shall bring forth a child, and the lemons will never die out." And so this is a poem that he had written about Syria, about how the lemons are a symbol of hope, because there's lemons everywhere in Syria, especially in Homs, where the story is set. Like there's a saying that says that every house in Homs has a lemon tree. And so these lemons, Syria is one of the oldest countries in the world. Damascus is the oldest city in the world. And so these lemons have been here for centuries, generations and generations, and they have seen the rise and fall of empires, and they have still existed. They have still survived all of that. And so for me, it was this symbol that everything's going to be okay. Like as long as there are lemons, there is hope, and the lemons will never die out.
That gives me the chills, because it's so poetic, and it does provide promise. And I think that the cover of this book, is very promising, and it's so uplifting and light, yet you open it up and then it's a lot of trauma. I mean, there's a lot of war. So how do you balance a character like Salama when she has war on the outside and she has war on the inside? I mean, she's raging in every direction. So how do you keep that balance and keep that hope? Because if it's so just, traumatic all the time, I don't know that you can keep readers, right? So how do you balance that as a writer?
My agent had described it like a wave. Honestly, she's like one of the biggest fans of this book. She has raised this book in places that she's amazing. So she made it like a curve, like a wave. And she's like, we have highs and lows, and we can't always put readers in pain, because then you just get desensitized to it. And so you need those hopeful moments. And the hopeful moments was the love story between Salam and Kenan. Like those quiet moments that they share together makes the story more bittersweet. Like you don't know when their moment is going to end, and if this story is going to end on a good note or on a high or a low note. And so it just keeps you on your toes, like, oh my god, please just let them be okay. And so this is why I wrote the love story, because she did need something that balances all of that turmoil inside of her and outside of what is going on, like that hope that she can hold on to. And that was the love story.
I think that was another reason why she needed Layla, right? She couldn't give up, because Layla also was her reminder to find that hope, and constantly reminded her to find joy. So that was another reason why we had to keep it. And yes, Melissa, color was such an important theme, and a beautiful theme for everybody, including her and myself. So where did that thought come from? Was that something early on, or was it brought in late? Like how did you?
It was early on. I'm obsessed with color. I don't understand color theory. I don't know if you guys seen those like Instagram reels where they like hold up a like picture, like photos of colors, and then they drop and they're like, oh, this works with your skin. I don't get those. They all look the same to me. But I love colors. I've always loved them. And so I love the sunset, and I love the sunrise, and I love everything that has to do with the sky. And the sky has such beautiful colors, especially during summer. Sunset summers are just out of this world. They're so beautiful. And so I wanted to take that love that I have for colors and put it in the book in a way like that. So yeah, that's how it came to be. Like that was my thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was brought through art, it was brought through nature. And I think without those pops, and I think that may have created your wave as well, because so much of the city was gray, right? There was just rubble.
And also like with what Salama had been going through with just her life, she saw everything gray, like she couldn't see the colors at all. And so for her, finding Kenan or finding hope in someone else brought the colors back to her life. I've talked about this a lot on like recently on my Instagram, that the what's it called? The it's like a game on Nintendo Switch that I've played. I've talked about it a lot, and it's called okay, no, it's not gonna show. It's called okay. Nope. Nope.
No,
Nope.
no.
There we go. Yeah,
Maybe, yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah. So that girl right there.
Good.
So that game is called Gris. And when I started playing it, I'm like, oh my God, like, what is this? So it talks about this girl who is dealing with the death of her mother, and she's going through the 5 stages of grief. And it begins with no color at all. Like her world is shattered, like she can't see the color anymore. And slowly, as she starts to pick herself up and run and run and run, color comes back into her world. And it was so emotional because that's literally what I was writing in Lemon Trees. To see that like also in a video game feels like kind of like a universal thing where when we're sad and we're going through something, we just can't see it anymore. And we need to keep going. We need people around us or just to find ourselves again, to find that color. So yeah, it was like, yeah, it's gray in Spanish. Thank you. Yes. And also
Thanks,
in French.
Allie.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Everyone should play that game. Honestly, it's like one of the best. It's on iPhone, it's on everything. It was just a healing experience. I had one author who was talking to me and she was like, me and my best friend played this after her father passed away. And it didn't heal, but she felt understood with what was happening with her.
Well, even Samala, when she was at the apartment with Layla, there was color. She still could see what it was like with her brother. But then when she lost Layla and she sees how Kenan saw it, it was back to gray. It was like,
exactly. Yeah. Thank you for catching on to that. Was an Easter egg when he brought her back home and there was gray, like it looked like it is. And she didn't know. Yeah. So like Kenan coming into her house was like, it kind of broke the illusion. Right. What she was going through. Yeah.
Because that's how she saw Kenan's was gray.
Exactly.
Right? She kept that safe space for herself at home.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to ask everybody to start thinking of your questions. And while we're doing that, I am going to give you rapid fire questions. Are you ready for these?
Okay.
Don't think about it. Just answer. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Favorite flower?
Daisy.
Pharmacy or writing?
Writing.
Morning or night?
Morning.
Favorite color?
Blue. Taylor
Swift or BTS?
Oh, come on. I can't. Both. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We'll if I had to choose, it would be BTS. If I had to choose, it would be BTS. Yeah.
Warm or cold weather?
Cold.
Fan art or fan fiction?
Oh, fan fiction.
Awesome. All right. You did awesome. You survived.
Thank you.
All right. Who here has a question? If you do, please raise your hand. If not, I have a ton more questions that we can keep going. All right, Allie, I'm going to ask you to unmute and add a spotlight. Go ahead, Allie.
So first off, I just want to say hello and oh my God, I loved your book. But the question that I had, and obviously it's so crazy because I didn't, so that they're young throughout the book, but I didn't realize how young they were until towards the end. They're in Canada and Kenan's younger siblings stayed with an aunt and uncle. And I was like, oh, where did they go? And I was like, wait a minute, they're like 18 and 19 years old. Like, of course not. So I guess my question is, far off into the future fantasy land, do they ever reconnect? Like, do they ever like get to be together again? Kenan's family with
yeah. Oh, I didn't even think that far ahead. I mean, I thought about their future a lot. I would say the thing is, I think they would visit each other a lot in the summer, like once they start being able to have their own money and be able to travel. I think like for the first 3 years, they're not able to see each other because it just doesn't work for them, visa, all that stuff. But after that, I think every summer that they would go and they would visit. And for like, because thinking of Kenan's siblings, they would have moved to Berlin when they were really young. And so they become German. You know, we've seen that a lot here in Europe with refugee children who have come here when they were like 9 years old, 10 years old, and they just like immediately start speaking the language and they just integrate really, really well into society. And so for them, Germany does become home. So it becomes very familiar to them. Would they move after graduation or something like that? Maybe. I would see it with Yusuf, with his brother. I don't know with Lama a lot, but I think they would visit them mostly during the summer. And hopefully one day they'd be able to bring them to Canada for like one summer as well. Because like I think it's easier for them to travel to Germany than get the kids to Canada. But like that is something I did think about. Kenan does feel, I had written one short story from his point of view, which I'm hopefully trying to get like find a way to get it like published for readers to read it. But like I had written about how Kenan feels so disconnected from his siblings because like he feels like they're a parent as well, but now they're growing up in a country where he doesn't see them, so they have their own inside jokes. They now look different every single time they talk on Skype or whatever. And so for him, he's like, oh my God, like I'm losing my siblings, but I can't do anything about it. But yeah, it's bittersweet. They're safe, but you know what I mean? You can't really see them a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Great question, Allie. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it was so good.
All right. Leslie made a comment in the chat box and it's on the same topic. So it says the love story really reminded me how young they are too, when their responsibilities in day-to-day life make them seem so much older. So, you know, how did you figure out, first of all, how old they were going to be in this story? And was that a cognizant decision or just why?
Sadly, new adult does not exist in publishing, and I really wanted it to be new adult. So I had to choose between adult and young adult. And for me, young adult was going to prevail because I did want this book to be in the hands of teenagers, because this book, I had written it for them to find out about what's going on. And so at first I had Salama be like 20, Kenan was like 22. And I was like, I'll get away with it. I'll just get away with it. But I did not. And so I had to like lower their ages to like 18, 19. But in my mind, it's like, it kind of also makes sense for me because there are a lot of children, like children of war grow up so much faster than children in other who are not going through the same situation as them. So it was reality writing people so young who have been going through so much, because some people are like, oh, it's not realistic. Trust me, it is very realistic. The things that children go through, those who have lost parents, those who have been, I mean, there's a lot of children who have been, who are in prison right now, like not even also in Syria, but also you could talk about the States, like in detention facilities. Those children grow up really, really fast. Like it's heartbreaking what they go through. And so it's like, it is reality. We just don't want to think about children going through hardships because we don't want to think about that because it makes us sad. But unfortunately, it is the truth. It happens. I mean, we've read The Hunger Games. Katniss was what, 16 years old? Like, but
it's a tribute.
It's a tribute, exactly. And it's like, it is fantasy, but it is also real. Like this does happen in real life in different scenarios, but equally horrifying.
Right.
So yeah.
All right, Melissa, go ahead. She has a question.
Well, just on loved this. I don't normally look for young adult. And as soon as I started reading, it was beyond me.
Wow.
I was like, this doesn't feel young adult to me. This feels very intense and beautiful. But on a I don't know, lighter note, maybe, I love the cover. This is so striking and beautiful. And did you get to have any say in this? Did you have any ideas that you wanted to have presented? I'd love to hear a little bit about that because it is gorgeous.
Yeah. Thank you. I was really worried about the cover. Like, as every author is, the cover, you do judge a book by its cover. So I was like, we have to get a good cover. We have to get a good cover. So what happens during this process is that your publisher sends you like a questionnaire about what themes are in the book, what themes would you like to see on the cover, just like describing just general questions. And then they send you sometimes it's usually 2 concept pictures, and they're like, they have to tell you like, this is not the final cover. This is just a sketch, and you have to tell your brain that it's just a sketch. They're like, it's going to be ugly, but it's just a sketch. So you're like, it's just a sketch, just a sketch. So you open it, and it's like it's like a pencil drawn thingy. And so there was a picture of a girl and a picture of a tree. That's why I had 2 options. So it could have been Sedama on the cover, or it could have been a tree. And so I was like, I wanted the tree because even though the book is about Sedama, it's much more than that. Like, it is her story, but I didn't want it to make it her story. You know what I mean? Like, it's a more general story. And so we went with the tree, and then they give you an option of artists who would be available, who they think would be able to bring the idea of the cover much better. And so I had like a pick of artists, and I resonated a lot with David Curtis, who did the covers for Victoria A. Schwab. He did, I forgot the book's name, but like, he did really beautiful book covers. And I really like the symbolism in his covers. He does such beautiful work. And so we went with him, and then slowly they give you like drafts of what the cover is going to be look like, draft 1, draft 2. And at first, I do have a say in stuff. Like, I did not like the font at the beginning. I thought the tree should look a bit different. In the earlier versions, the architecture at the back was kind of destroyed. Like, there's a mosque at the back, and it was kind of destroyed. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want anything destroyed in my cover. I want everything to look whole. I want to give this like hope in my book. Like, if someone looks at the cover and they're like, wow, this is beautiful, this is magical. And I really loved how he's also made it blue. So he put a lot of creativity on his own into the cover. And I didn't feel the need to change a lot of things. It was just like very simple stuff, like, you know, the font, like just font stuff, or like the shade of color of the yellow. Like, I tried to be artistic, but it didn't work, like, because he did such a fantastic job. And so, yeah, that's what happened. And then this was the US cover. And then obviously foreign rights or other territories have their own cover. If they want, they could use the US one. The UK went through a different direction. It was the same cover, but they had Saddam and Kinan's silhouette on the cover. Also, David did that as well. And they closed the border of the book. So it looks like a portrait. That one has like an open border at the end. So they're very, like, it was so beautiful. Like, I was so happy with that. And I felt like the other territories, I think like the Danish and the Dutch also used the US cover, but I don't know if I didn't ask them to make sure, but like the blue was more deeper. They had a different shade of blue in their cover. So it's very interesting and fun to see like the different aspects of every different territory that they do.
Yeah. Do you get a copy of all of them?
Yes.
Good.
I wish I read the languages that it's been published in, but I don't. But they're so beautiful. It makes me wish that I could read Danish or Dutch or Serbian. The Serbian cover is gorgeous. They had like this dark fairy tale look to it. The tree looks amazing. I don't speak Serbian, very sad stuff, but like, I'll get a copy of the book, so that's great.
Yeah. We'll look for it on your Instagrams. Great question, Melissa.
Yes, yeah.
I think we have one more question. Brooke has one for you. Let me add her. And Tracy noticed those covers as well, but it's interesting that they're so similar because some are completely different. All right, go ahead, Brooke.
Thanks. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I loved this book. I read it in January and I was like, is it too soon to say this is my favorite book of the year? And so far, it's still just been my absolute favorite. It's so beautifully done. So thank you for sharing it with us. I wanted to just ask, and I was a couple minutes late, so I apologize if this has been asked already. But are you working on anything currently? And is there anything about your next project that you can share with us? Because anything that you publish in the future, it's auto buy for me.
Thank you. I do have a book 2 in my contract, which is what I actually got my edit letter 2 days ago. So I'm still in the editing process. Like, this is the early process. I didn't get any cover concepts, so like we're really, really early. But it's supposed to come out in 2024. We still don't know. It depends on how fast I am with editing. But it's like, so Lemon Trees has young adult crossover. This one is going to be purely young adult, even though I will say I think the love interest in that one suffered more than Saddam and Kenan, like way more. Which is saying something, but I don't, it's really sad. So it talks about what happens when someone becomes like a refugee, like when you reach land, people are like, oh, they're here, it's safe, yay, they made it. But now it's like the beginning of a new journey to be accepted in society, for people to know that you didn't ask to be a refugee. This is this is a very hard part in your life, to be able to acclimate to what's going on. And so it takes place in this fictional town in Washington. It's by the ocean, because I love the ocean. The ocean and the sky play a very big role in the book. And it's told from the point of view of this white passing Syrian girl who goes to this very elite school, and she's aiming to be valedictorian. So she's like, gets the top grades, all of that. She doesn't wear the hijab, so she like blends in seamlessly with all the other elite students in her school. And then the school wants to do something nice, and so they let this refugee boy from Syria in to attend the school for like pro bono on a scholarship, because he really is smart. And so he has been he went through stuff. Him and his sister in Syria, they lost their older brother, and so they're dealing with a lot of PTSD. And his dad and her dad were best friends back in Syria, so they kind of like they know each other through their parents. And so when he starts going to school, bad stuff starts to happen, bullying happens, all that stuff. And so she has to make kind of like a decision. Is she just American? Is she just Syrian? Can she be allowed to be both? Because it's okay to be both. And so she has to like come to terms with who she is as a Muslim Syrian American person living in the States. So it's cute. It's a cute story. It really is. There's a lot of, it's much more quieter than Lemon Trees, because the stakes are not life or death. They're just high school, but also like issues that happen in high school as well. Yeah, I do like it. I hope you like it too. But it's set in the same universe as Lemon Trees. I'm hoping that it stays like that. I don't know if I'm going to be eating my words in a year from now, but like hopefully it's in the same universe as Lemon Trees and it stays like that, which would be interesting because some people might make a cameo. We don't know. We will see. So yeah, so I'm really excited.
Thanks,
you.
Brooke. Great question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, do you have time for one more, Hajar?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute and add a spotlight. So go ahead.
Hello. I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. And also Eid Mubarak or Ramadan Mubarak to you, Zoulfa. I don't know which one's closer now.
I think Eid is closer.
Yes, Eid is definitely closer, but still we are in Ramadan. So I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to say that I really like you and I love you without actually meeting you or knowing you or actually reading the book. And no, don't worry about spoilers. I'm muted all the time when you were talking about something.
Okay,
but,
great.
I just had to come and say I really like you.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining, Hajar. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I really did think that this was the perfect book to celebrate Arab American history. That's a newer celebration in our country here. So thank you for letting us talk about this book, and it, especially so close to Syria Day. Oh gosh, we do have one more. All right, that one will last one.
That's okay. Yeah,
I'm good. We're gonna go ahead. Maria, yes, you got it just in the nick of time.
Thank you for writing this book. I just wanted to share that as a Muslim American, it's so nice to see books written about us, even though I'm not Arab. I just find it so important. It's especially at the young adult level. It's nice to see some hopeful books, especially recounting the Muslim experience, which is so misunderstood. And I'm very excited about your new book, especially about this woman who does not wear the hijab, because a lot of us Muslim women don't wear them as well. So thank you very much for sharing different aspects of the Muslim experience outside of our Muslim countries.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I know my characters are Arab, but like it's for all Muslims. Like, you know what I mean? But this book is also for you. So
yeah, and I felt so much in there. Yes, I felt so much in there. So thank you so much for sharing that. And early Eid Mubarak to you.
To you too and your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, for saying that. And this has been such a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful night. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you, Zoulfa. Thank you, readers out there, for joining. Thank you even for the readers who haven't read, but will be reading soon. Please make sure and check out her Instagram. It's really awesome. I think maybe we'll get to see some more of those covers coming in as you hit different countries. We would love to see the different designs.
I mean, I do have 21 languages, and so some of them have covers, some of them still don't have covers. So like, I want new covers. I get so greedy, like I just want one after the other. They're so beautiful. People are just so creative.
They're absolutely gorgeous. So please follow her for her new news. And I would love for everyone to follow LB, the lover of books, on Instagram or Facebook. Look for reviews, recommendations, and more author chats. On Sunday, April 30th, we are taking a different approach. It's going to be a lighter book. It's a rom-com by Catherine Center called The Bodyguard. And
Nice.
looking forward to that. It's another book of the month pick. And this one has racked up so many best book of the year awards as well. It would just put us in overtime again, just like this book, if we were to list them all out. But it's a fantastic novel, a rom-com. I think you're going to love it. If you know of an author that you would like to hear from, please message me. I would love to talk to them as well. And someone asked earlier about if you did mute part of this and you want to see the rest of it, is going to be on YouTube, LB, the lover of books. Thanks again, Zoulfa. You're amazing. You're just a delight. I could talk to you all night. Like, I didn't get to gold. I didn't get to arranged marriages. We didn't get to her leaving as a refugee. Like, there was so much to talk about, but this book was great. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope y'all have a great night.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night.